Madra upon you, Jerusalem, stand and feed Jerusalem. Blessing of the day of Simon. Barakatah Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh, Asherah, Mithanawa, Yahweh, Hashalom, Tawada, Aman. Blessed are Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shah that gives us the assignment. Thank you, so be it. I am Ma'ad, Asherah, I am a Qad, Psalms 121. Anya Harayim Mayanya Oh Harayim Yabawa Isaiah Yabawa Shai Shamayim Warataza La'a Yasan Lamawat Regalia Yala'a Yanawam Sashamarka Hana La'a Yanawam Yala'a Yayashun Shashwama Yashua Yahweh Shamaya Yahweh Hash Hash La'a Hakaya Wayara Baliyah Yahweh 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 Hawalakia Bawaya Ma'itha Wa'ai Aiwam Marsham Yahawashah Psalms 121. I will lift up mine eyes into the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord, which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is thy keeper, the Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth and even forevermore. Amen. Shema Yashrala, hear, O Israel. Shema Yashrala, Yahweh, Allah Hayanawa, Yahweh, Shema Yashrala, Yahweh, Allah Hayanawa, Yahweh, Shema Yashrala, Yahweh, Allah Hayanawa, Deuteronomy 6:4, hear, O Israel, the Lord our power is one Lord. Tapla Yahweh, the Lord's Prayer. Abba Yahweh, Shemayim, Kodash, Hayah, Shamka, Yahweh, Malaka, Faba'a, Rakazawan, Aisha, Rataza, Ka, Shemayim, Manawa, Kam, Yawam, Masamaka, Kabasnawa, Kasalaknawa, Kababaknawa, Walaha, Abiyah, Oh, Saiwan, Abo, Abishaynawa, Marai, Kayama, Laka, Amalakwa, Allah, Wakarat, Iwalam, Matthew 6:9. After this manner, therefore pray ye, our Father from heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. Thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Give us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Hi, Asherah Matazawaf, the Ten Commandments. La'ah, Yahaya, Laka, Alahayim, Alkarim, Alpanya, La'a, Ta'aisha, Laka, Pason, Wala'a, Ta'ibadam, La'a, Alakwaka, Shamwa, Yahweh, Alahayaka, Lashua, Zakar, Af, Hayawum, Hashabath, Makudashma, Kabad, Abiaka, Wa Amaka, La'a, Daratazah, La'a, Sana'a, La'a, Fagana, La'a, Taina, Shakur, La'a, Fakamad, Ko, Ashira, Lara'ayaka, Aman. Exodus 20th chapter and the third verse. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in the heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. The seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work. Thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and holiday. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. Amen. The Shabbat be seated. The Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai, Asherah Nathanawa, Par Yagabin, Thwad Aman, La Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai, Af Yasha Allah. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it. To Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, with Israel. I model upon you, Jerusalem, stand and face Jerusalem. Opening prayers. Barakatha Yahweh, Hagadol, Rakuam, Abiyah, Wanara'ah, Aliyah, Malak, Shom, Shemayim, Wakaratasa, Wakom, Dabarim, Kayayim, Wagam, Hamashiach, Mayahawa, Arawanawa, Ahabnawa, Hapurah, Yawaitasa, Yahawashah, Yakarnawa, Yahawah, Baratazawan, Anka, Yasha'ala, Izarnawa, Banana, Wasa, Yasha'ala, O, Nanawa, Yamyan, Isa, Kayamyu, Makodam, Babakusha, Shalak, Mayaka'ala, Wahatazawada, Alahayan, Madanawa, Rapana, Rapama, Ana, Aiku, Shalak, Sarona, Shalom, Yahawasha, Lanawa, Lalapana, Rabin, Kakama, Sabawana, Wadai, Shalom, Yahawasha, Tawada, God, Wa aywalam aman. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, the great, merciful, mighty, terrible, most high power, King of heaven and earth, and all things living. And also the anointed from Yahweh, our Lord, our friend, the wonderful counselor, Yahweh Shai. Remember us, Yahweh, favorably, your people Israel. Help us build and gather Israel. Most high, we beg you. Right now, like the days of God, please send Michael and the righteous powers to protect us, heal us, and watch over us. Mainly send the spirit of Yahweh Shai to us, to teach us much wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of thy word. In the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you always and forever. So be it. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives us the law. Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Ashira, Natalanawa, Atawara. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives us light to see. Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Ashira, Natalanawa, Oh, Allah. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives us the rams who want to call the people. Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Ashra, Natalanawa, Koran, Ha'ayom, Bakoran, Ha'ay, Shabbat. Right, shalom, shalom. Peace and blessings to the brothers and sisters that's watching on the live stream, those listening on the teleconference, and the Akim that's here in school. Happy day of Simon, right? Shar, the womb, Shemai one. Actually, it's Simon Thassi when you read it in the first Maccabees, the first chapter, right? Just like Judas Maccabees, Judas was his name, and Maccabees was his surname. Simon was his name, and Thassi was his surname as well. So, when you say Simon, you can say Simon Thassi to go along with it. But again, happy day of Simon. This is a day that we are celebrating in memory of the actions that he participated in, that he did for the nation of Israel at that time, coming out of the line on the loins of his father Matthias, who reared up some great sons to take and become the captain of the host for the nation of Israel back during the times of the Greeks Empire, and how they came, did all types of massacres, murders, exploits, and things against us at that time when we were as a nation living within our realms in Judea and Jerusalem. And these men stood up and defended the nation in the name of Yahweh Shah. And when you read through the Maccabees, this is a great storyline, one of my favorites, as it pertains to a narrative that we read throughout the Bible. There's two solemn days that we celebrate coming out of the Maccabees. One, which is the day of Judas. Two, which was the day of Simon. And then there's a high holy day that we keep, which is the feast of the rededication of the altar, also known as Hanukkah. So these are 3 days that we read throughout the Maccabees that now have significance that we're still keeping, thousands of years later, as a memorial and a tribute to what our forefathers did for the nation of Israel and helping defend and also allowing us to worship the Lord at that time and even stand together today to do the same thing in the spirit. So we're going to read the history pertaining to what led up to this memorial pertaining to Simon Thassi, or the day of recognition for the day of Simon. We're going to go into the book of the Apocrypha. For those who are dialed online, Lord's will, you do have an Apocrypha, such as this, King James Authorized Apocrypha. You can Google it online. If you don't have one, take the time to just go do a Google search of the King James Apocrypha and pull that up online, or you can also download the app. It is an authorized version. It was a part of the original 1611 King James Version Bible. Probably a good topic class for any of the Kahunians, myself, Elders Aquan, Kahun Nabiao, or Kahun Pakwa, to even go into a class pertaining to the King James Version and the history pertaining to how we have the collection of Bibles and who wrote it and things of that nature. So that's another thing that we can put on the docket. But this is a part of the Bible. We will go into this. There's 2 chapters that we're going to read pertaining to this man and bringing up to today while we're coming and commemorating this day in honor of him. All right, so we're going to go into First Maccabees, the 12th chapter. And before we read the 12th chapter, the 12th chapter in the first verse, so I can just give a bit of backstory, right? Mattathias was the father of these sons. Read in the first chapter, and he was the first one to take and become the captain of the host over Israel at that time. And there were other people who joined themselves to them. When you read in the scriptures that at that time it wasn't fashionable to defend or stand in honor of the laws, statutes, and commandments, but for those who were zealous of the law and were aligned to the Most High, they aligned themselves with Mattathias. And he went and defended the nation. You read the first couple of chapters. He fought many wars and cleansed the people. Those who had aligned themselves with the heathen, the Greeks, he went and also removed them, or even, went and performed, different rites and things that they needed at that time, because they weren't keeping the commandments, they weren't keeping the law. So we know that he was an honorable man, and he died. The scriptures doesn't tell you if he died in war or because of a wound. It's at the time when he was about to die, he went and set his house in order, right, and set up Judas as to being the captain of the host, and Jonathan and his sons would be like advisors supporting him, giving counsel on certain things. Later on, Judas himself, Maccabeus, well-renowned, renowned man at that time, he died in battle. You read it in the Maccabees. He went out to war, and his fate had it as the Most High's will was. He died in battle. And then his brother Jonathan went and took the reins as being captain of the host. So now when we read in the 12th chapter, right before this 12th chapter, in the 11th chapter, Jonathan went out and fought some wars, and there was times where he had, a little difficulty in fighting some of these wars where they were put to flight, and they had to go back and pray and gather themselves together and then go back and fight wars. So sometimes it may not always be in your favor. Sometimes the Most High may test your fortitude, test your strength, test your mental, to see if you're just in it for the good. And then when opposition or ill fate comes, will you just pack up and run, or will you just run away from the Most High and leave the truth and not deal with the knowledge anymore? And we see that even Jonathan himself, he had to come back and pray and regroup when you read toward the ending of the 11th chapter. And he went back and put certain men to flight that had chased him. And now he had come to a certain area. So just a quick synopsis of what was going on that led up to this time. I like to kind of, you watch a TV show, a series, they kind of give you a 30-second, soundbite of leading up to where we are right now. So this man, Jonathan, was one of the sons of Mattathias who was set up or became captain of the host, that we're going to read about what was going on with him at this time, and then what would transition into Simon Thassi taking over. All right, so we're going to start off with First Maccabees chapter 12 and verse 1. And before we start, we're going to give all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High Yahweh Shah for this knowledge, for this wisdom, for this understanding, and for the opportunity for us to come together and be able to break bread spiritually throughout the scriptures. All right, so always try to give the Most High glory in that fashion. So now we're going to start. My name is Kahan Samak, priest Samak in the Hebrew, and we're going to start at chapter 12, verse 1, First Maccabees. All right. And it reads, it says, now when Jonathan saw that the time served him, he chose certain men and sent them to Rome for to confirm and renew the friendship that they had with them. Right. So the time served him because he had now just won a battle. Right. Put certain men to flight, slain. I think it said about 2,000 or 3,000 men in the previous chapter. And now they were able to now have some time and space to gather their thoughts and regroup and see what was going to be the next goal and the next thing that they was going to put in motion to help defend the nation. So he said, listen, we're going to try to regroup and go make our former alliances with the Romans. Now, before Jonathan, right, and before, we even come to see this had already happened with his brother that preceded him. You read about this in First Maccabees, the 8th chapter, when the Romans first began to make themselves or their presence known in the earth as being the next up and coming. We know through history that after the Greeks, it was the Romans that succeeded them and took reign and power at that next time. So we'll see in First Maccabees, the 8th chapter, how this started. So let's go to First Maccabees, the 8th chapter, and the first verse. So First Maccabees 8 and 1, it says, now Judas had heard of the fame of the Romans, that they were mighty and valiant men, and such as would lovingly accept all that joined themselves unto them, and make a league of amity with all that came unto them, and that they were men of great valor. It was told him also of their wars and their noble acts, which they had done among the Galatians, and how they had conquered them and brought them under tribute, right? So in this case, we know that the Romans are also Edomites, right? They're the same people as the Greeks, right? All these people that's in that realm, the Galatians, these are just men, the same people fighting amongst themselves. The same thing that's going on right now over there in the Middle East with the Ukrainians fighting the Russians. They're the same people, right? They're closely more tied together than their other brothers when you look at their ethnicity and their stock from whence they come. So this is the same thing that's going on here. And now the Romans, from what the information that was provided to Judas, was more noble than the Greeks, right? They had a little bit more morals. Not to say that their morality was high, but they were just somewhat better than the Greeks. And that's what the information that he received, and that's what he's going off of, right? It says, verse 3, and what they had done in the country of Spain for the winning of the mines of the silver and gold which is there, and that by their policy and patience they had conquered all the place, though it were very far from them, and the kings also that came against them from the utmost part of the earth, so they had discomfited them and given them a great overthrow, so that the rest did give them tribute every year. So everyone that they went and conquered, right, they put them to flight, they slain them, or they had them pay tribute or tax. Right now, remember the Greeks are still predominantly ruling, but the Romans are now taking small victories here and there to be the next up and coming power. Rome wasn't won in a day, right? So that's the same thing. When they are now coming and succeeding the Greeks, they're taking these small victories, and you're reading about it. And Judas was able to see these things as well.
Yeah, we call ourselves Hispanic. It comes from this province which the Romans conquered. They initially renamed it Tarshish, but before they renamed it Hispania.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where we get Hispanic from.
Exactly, Kun, right? The language and the name and the title that we call ourselves is from our oppressors when they came over and conquered us, right? But that history starts way before that. All right, so now we're going to jump down to verse 17 based on, you continue reading. It's just going to go into a lot of the different things that they've done in conquering and the different things that they would do to the people in friendship, as well as how they dealt with their enemies. So in verse 17, it says, in consideration of these things, Judas chose Eupolemus, the son of John, the son of Achus, and Jason, the son of Eleazar, and sent them to Rome to make a league of amity and confederacy with them. Right? So now here it is. We made an agreement with the Romans to side and be somewhat of a confederate. Right? A confederacy is kind of like an alignment with them. When they now have issues or problems, you support them and vice versa. You read about that later on in this chapter. It goes into the specifics about that, whether it's war, whether it's money, food, victuals. That's now what that confederacy agreement ties you to. Same thing they have now, right? What you call with NATO or the EU. They go through the same type things and the same type agreements. So now they have made a league or a confederacy with the Romans. Why? Verse 18. And to entreat them that they would take the yoke from them, for they saw that the kingdom of the Grecians did oppress Israel with servitude. Right? So the enemy of my enemy might become my friend. Let me go and make a league with him, and maybe he can go and take the yoke off of this guy that he's put upon us and our people to allow us to go and serve the Most High. Right? The Romans would allow us to serve the Most High, whereas the Greeks did not. Right? They pushed their influence upon us and forcibly made us not keep the laws, the sacrifices, and the holy days anymore, whereas the Romans would allow us to do those things. Hence, when you look in the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, during the time of Christ, we were still able to go and keep certain feast days and certain holy days. That's why Christ kept the Passover and feast of rededication of the altar, and so forth and so on. And the apostles also, when you read later on in the Acts of the Apostles, because this is what the Romans allowed, but the Greeks were not so much, right? So this is why they wanted to make this friendship, this confederacy with them, and see if they can remove them out of the way, right? Now jump down to verse 29. So it says, according to these articles, did the Romans make a covenant with the people of the Jews, right? So based on the agreement, one side sent people and letters to make an agreement. The other side heard it. Then they would send people back and say, you know what? Here are our stipulations. Do you agree to our terms? And once the two sides agree, then you make it a covenant or a pact. So this has happened before Jonathan came into the position that he's in, that we're reading about in First Maccabees, the 12th chapter. These things have been happening amongst our people. So now when you fast forward back to First Maccabees, the 12th chapter, and the first verse again, it says, now when Jonathan saw that the time served him, he chose certain men and sent them to Rome for to confirm and renew the friendship that they had with them, right? Because, these had already been established, but sometimes between wars and time and place, things kind of lapse and you don't know where a certain person stands, right? So you now have to go and send an ambassador or send somebody back there again to make sure everything is on the up and up, right? That we still in alignment, because you never know. You may have a new person that now takes the throne or takes that leadership position, and he don't have that same feeling like he does towards you. We read that in Exodus, the 2nd chapter, with Joseph and Pharaoh, right? Joseph was great. He was second in command with that Pharaoh. But once Pharaoh died and a new Pharaoh came, he was afraid of Israel and put a heavy yoke of burden upon us as a nation. Hence, we went into 400 years of captivity, right? So now this is why Jonathan is wanting to see if everything is still as it once was. So I'm going to send some ambassadors out on our behalf to speak upon renewing this friendship. Verse 2, he sent letters also to the Lacedaemonians and to other places for the same purpose. So throughout that region, right, Lacedaemonians over there by Sparta, throughout that region, we had certain alignments with different people. So not only to Rome, but also to Lacedaemon and to other places did these letters go out to now renew the confederacy. Verse 3, so they went unto Rome and entered into the Senate and said, Jonathan, the high priest and the people of the Jews sent us unto you, to the end ye should renew the friendship which ye had with them and league as in former times. Upon this, the Romans gave them letters unto the governors of every place that they should bring them into the land of Judea peaceably. And this is the copy of the letters which Jonathan wrote to the Lacedaemonians. So sometimes everybody didn't have their key figure go and speak on behalf of the people. You sent other people out to go on your behalf. Because sometimes you may not, you think wisely, you may not know they may go and take you captive if they're not on the up and up. So you go and you send ambassadors on behalf of you. And it was kind of like somewhat, what they would call honor amongst thieves or respect in war, right? They have it what they call the Geneva Convention, where there's certain rules to warfare, right? If someone's coming with the white flag or someone's coming as an ambassador, you don't take and kill them or do something treacherous to them because they're just coming on peaceful terms. So you just kind of deal with them, on a certain respect level. And this is kind of what was going on when they sent these men out to speak on behalf of them. And the Romans would do the same thing and send letters out to the rest of the provinces and places where these ambassadors would go to make sure that nothing would happen to them, that they can go and return peaceably from whence they came. So now you're going to see what letters that also went to the Lacedaemonians. Verse 5 again. And this is the copy of the letters which Jonathan wrote to the Lacedaemonians. Jonathan, the high priest, and the elders of the nation, and the priests, and the other people of the Jews unto the Lacedaemonians, their brethren, send greeting. There were letters sent in times past unto Onias, the high priest, from Darius, who reigned then among you, to signify that ye are our brethren, as the copy here underwritten does specify. At which time Onias entreated the ambassadors that were sent honorably and received the letters wherein declaration was made of the league and friendship. So you see this man, Jonathan, he's known as the high priest. He's also captain of the host. He's also a politician, because when you read these letters, it's the same thing that, you see your politicians now trying to convince certain other people to join them or make an alliance with them. So you have to be strategic. You have to wear many hats when you are a leader or a man that's set up over the nation of Israel, right? You examine certain individual who has been put as captain of the host, whether it's David. You may even learn from Saul, whether good things or bad things. You even learn from Yahushua, right? Yahushua was a man who not only just taught, but he had to take care to feed the people, right? You just can't always be a law person, just teach. You got to be considerate and say, yo, these people got to eat. So you got to wear many hats when you are now put in a position of authority, whether small or great. You have to consider everything around you. And this is what Jonathan's now, who now has to kind of play the role of a politician, sending out letters and putting certain things in the letters to now get them to kind of be like, oh yeah, you know what, you're right. We are brethren, right? They're not from the 12 tribes, but these men are from the same stock, right? Just like you read in the scriptures, Jacob and Esau were brothers. When you look at it on the surface, we can use that in leverage when you are now having certain discussions with certain people to your advantage, right? It doesn't mean that you're going to now treat them as a Hebrew brother, but you're going to use that leverage to make and form certain alliances. And that's what Jonathan is doing, all right? So I'm going to read that again, verse 8. It says, at which time Onias entreated the ambassador that was sent honorably and received the letters wherein declaration was made of the league and friendship. Therefore, we also, albeit we need none of these things, for that we have the holy books of scriptures in our hands to comfort us, right? Isaiah 34:16, seek ye out of the book of the Lord. Romans 15:4, right? Things written aforetime. So these things is where we really go for our source. Now, making the leagues and confederacies and friendships with the other nations, those are not our primary means to be able to get comfort or to get succor or protection. It's the Most High that we get that from. But with wisdom, you learn how to navigate in society, in the world, right? With the testimonies that we read in the scriptures, we learn from other men, or we learn from other women on how they move, right? The things that King David did, I was kind of like, yo, that's crazy. I'm trying to understand, tap into the mind when he was foaming at the mouth. I was like, yo, I wonder what was he thinking around the spot to do that, right? So you got to be quick with it, and you have to consider a lot of things in order to be able to not only manage yourself, but manage the people as well, right? To be able to defend the people. So here it is. They made it sure that they let them know that it's not that we looking to get our protection and comfort and everything from you. We get that from the scriptures. We get that from the Most High. However, right, this is what we like to see. So reading on in verse 10, have nevertheless attempted to send unto you for the renewing of brotherhood and friendship, lest we should become strangers unto you altogether. For there is a long time past since ye sent unto us. We therefore at all times without ceasing, both in our feasts and other convenient days, do remember you in the sacrifices which we offer, and in our prayers as reason is, and as it becometh us to think upon our brethren. Right? So those who show favor and kindness toward us, right, we'll do the same thing. Right? If someone goes out and sends an olive branch, we'll do the same thing. We're not reckless people. We were never a reckless nation to just go out there and do people bad or nations bad like how we see the other nations do, right? We're not desiring to just go out there and overtake people's inheritance. That's what the nations do. They always plot on someone else. So there's always treachery and deceit. We, when you read the scriptures, were never a nation that moved and operated that way. So if a people came and showed us favor, we would do the same thing. So when you read this, don't get it confused and say, oh Lord, at the feast we making prayers and this, that, and the third. No, this people, right, even though they're Edomites, this group of Edomites showed favor to us at that time. And I'm saying at that time because this is back then when we're first learning about them as a nation. Over time, we will begin to learn more about them as a nation. Right? There's a saying, when a person shows you who they are, you should believe them. And they would show us over time who they are, even up until this day. But at this moment, this is how Jonathan and the Israelites were moving to be able to protect the realm, right? You side with those who at least show you a bit of love. So reading that again in verse 11, we therefore at all times without ceasing, both in our feasts and in our convenient days, do remember you and the sacrifices which we offer, and in our prayers as reason is, and as it becometh us to think upon our brethren. And we are right glad of your honor. As for ourselves, we have had great troubles and wars on every side, for so much as the kings that are round about us have fought against us. Right? So he's saying, listen, we didn't know what was going on with you. Right? It's been a long time since you sent us letters. We sent you letters. We don't know what state of affairs you're in. However, this is what's going on with us. Right? We got all kind of wars and battles and things going on dealing with these Greeks, just to let you know. Right? Not to say that we need desperately yet, but man, these guys is on us like that. I don't know if they're on y'all like that. This is kind of how the conversation usually goes. Right? You're trying to see if they're going to want to extend or reform this agreement to maybe help you out. Right? It says in verse 14, howbeit we would not be troublesome unto you, nor to others of our confederates and friends in these wars. So it's like, look, we're not going to burden you with our problems. We're just letting you know what was going on these past several decades or whatever, how long it's been. But this is what it is, right? Hold that, go to, I think, the book of Ezra, chapter 8. Give me 1 second. Let me see if this is the right one. Right, so this is Ezra's chapter 8 and verse 21, right? Ezra chapter 8 and verse 21. As well, yeah. Ezra, not Ezra in the Apocrypha, Ezra in the Bible. This is 8 and 21. It says, then I proclaimed a fast there at the river of Ahava, that we might afflict ourselves before our God, to seek of him a right way for us and for our little ones and for our substance. Right. So this was a common practice that you read throughout the scriptures when Israel was in the straits and we were fighting so many wars and it seems like everything was coming against us. We would come together, band together, and fast, and then pray to the Most High for protection, for comfort, for hope, for raising up a savior, all of these things for the goodness of the nation, right? But verse 22 says, for I was ashamed to require of the king a band of soldiers and horsemen to help us against the enemy in the way. because we had spoken unto the king, saying, the hand of our God is upon all them for good that seek him, but his power and his wrath is against all them that forsake him, right? So sometimes when we speak about our power and our God, we don't want to rely on some other nation. We don't want to go and seek their help to say that, well, our God was like, I don't know, he took a nap. Well, he's not there right now, like how the other nations do, right? So we would never press people to say, hey, we need your help, because we have our God and we informed all these people about the strength and power of our mighty living God. So the same thing that Ezra was speaking about is the same thing that Jonathan put in the letters, that we got comfort and hope in the scriptures, and we rely on our power, our God. But we just still want to make sure that everything is good between us. That's kind of what he's trying to portray here in the letters that's sent to the Romans, Lacedaemonians, and the rest. All right. So let's go back. First Maccabees 12 and 15 now. I'm going to read 14 again. It says, howbeit we would not be troublesome unto you, nor to others of our confederates and friends in these wars. For we have help from heaven that succoureth us. So as we are delivered from our enemies, and our enemies are brought underfoot, right? Because it's the Most High that gives us the victory. Not weapons, not sword, not guns, right? Not anything but the Most High. Surely you may have these things, but you don't rely on them to get you the victory. Scriptures tell us, right? It says in verse 16, for this cause we chose Numenius, the son of Antiochus, and Antipater, the son of Jason, and sent them unto the Romans to renew the amity that we had with them and the former league, right? So if you notice, those who are Jews, Israelites, also had these same names that we read about of the enemy, right? You see here Antiochus, you see Antipater, right? These are the same names when you read in the beginnings of the book of First Maccabees. These were the names of the king and the son. But we also took these names. Same thing how we see even today, right? We have the names or get accustomed to using the names of our oppressors or the custom and culture that we are part in. We do the same thing then, and we did it today, right? So I'm going to read that again. For this cause we chose Numenius, the son of Antiochus, and Antipater, the son of Jason, and sent them unto the Romans to renew the amity that we had with them and the former league. We commanded them also to go unto you and to salute you and to deliver you our letters concerning the renewing of our brotherhood. Wherefore, now you should do well to give us an answer thereto. Right. So that was the gist of the letters, and that same spirit, that same, message went out to all these different areas, to include the Lacedaemonians. This was very specific and pointed that we have the record here because it calls out specific names. Right. Now in verse 19, this is the reply or the response that they're now about to give to our brethren. Verse 19, it says, and this is a copy of the letters which Oniarus sent. Arius, king of the Lacedaemonians, to Onias the high priest, greeting. It is found in writing that the Lacedaemonians and Jews are brethren, and that they are of the stock of Abraham, right? Which is true, because whether you look at the Greeks, look at the Romans, you look at those who are spread throughout Lacedaemonia, Sparta, all those areas throughout there, they all derive or come out of the line of Esau, right? Esau is the brother to Jacob. Jacob and Esau are the son to Isaac. Isaac is a son to Abraham. So based on that family tree, we are all one people that comes out of Abraham. However, we are all not the people or the children of God. I'm going to read this in Romans, the 9th chapter. There's a distinction that sometimes people get confused. They try to lump everybody as being the children of God because God created all nations. But even here, the Most High is going to make a distinction to show you that everybody cannot have that title or that claim being a child of God, even though they come out of the seed or the stock of Abraham. So this is chapter 9 of the book of Romans and verse 7. Romans chapter 9 and verse 7. So it says, neither because they are of the seed of Abraham are they all children, but in Isaac shall thy seed be called. Right? So just because you had some nations that came out of the line or the loins of Abraham, does the Most High consider them all the children of God? Now, most people don't even consider when you read this verse, this just eliminates a whole lot of people outside of those that came out of Abraham, because the Hamites have nothing to do with the line of Shem to even get to Abraham, right? Or the Japhetic nations do not have anything to do with this same stock here that we're reading about. So here in the scriptures in the New Testament, Paul was well aware that everybody, all these other people, the Hamitic people, the Japhetic people, when we speak about the Hamitic people, these are the indigenous people that lived in the land or the continent of Africa before Esau or the other nations came and spread themselves throughout that region, right? Yes, they are people of melanin skin, dark complexion, or dark complexion, so forth and so on, that may resemble us, but of a different heritage. They're not the same people as us, right? But they're not even included in this. Same thing with the Japhetic people. When you look at what we call the Polynesians, those who will be from the Fiji Islands, Tongans, and so forth and so on, right? All throughout that region. Right now, they dwell throughout the Pacific and other areas, but these what we would call those from the Japhetic line. They're not even mentioned in this here. We're just starting with Abraham and those sons and a specific son, because Abraham had Ishmael and other sons, but of a specific son, which is Isaac, right? It says, I'm going to read it again, neither because they are the seed of Abraham are they all children, but in Isaac shall thy seed be called. Abraham, because he was a friend of the Most High, and the Most High would make his choice through Abraham as one of the forefathers and progenitors of his chosen nation, right? It says in 8, that is, they which are of the children of the flesh, these are not the children of God. Speaking about Hagar and Ishmael, right? They were of the flesh. Ishmael coming from Hagar, who Abraham had sex with to produce Ishmael. They were not considered children or child of God. They're brethren, but they're not the chosen, right? It says, but the children of the promise are counted of or for the seed, right? We know that Isaac was promised to Abraham and Sarah to be born even in their old age, right? So that was the child of promise. So now, as we get a little bit more definitive, we see that now the Lord is separating out, like Christ said, the goats from the sheep, right? There was only going to be one that was going to be selected. The other goats had to be pushed to the side, and that's what also Paul is getting and speaking about here. Christ spoke about that in the parable, right? So now, as you read further down, it goes down into Jacob and Esau when you read further down. I don't want to go too deep into that, but I just want to highlight that when you speak about Abraham and all of these other people coming out of the line of Abraham, specifically Esau, Greeks and Romans and others, they are not the people of God. They are not chosen people because they come from Abraham. You have to come from Jacob and his 12 sons who became tribes, which were like many nations in the earth. That is the chosen people of God when you read the Bible. Thus saith the Lord. Not Samak, not man, or anyone else. Thus saith the Lord when you read the scriptures. And that's why we started off with this here. So anyone gets a little bit rattled or confused, you know, and they ask you for your opinion, you always give them the facts, give them the scriptures to make sure that they understand that this is the truth of the Lord and not how we feel. All right. So let's go back to First Maccabees 12 and 21. So reading that again, it says, it is found in writing that the Lacedaemonians and Jews are brethren, and that they are of the stock of Abraham, right? So we understand that they do share, you know, a brotherhood as nations, but not as a chosen people. Verse 22. Now, therefore, since this has come to our knowledge, Ye shall do well to write unto us of your prosperity. We do write back again to you that your cattle and goods are ours, and ours are yours. We do command, therefore, our ambassadors to make report unto you on this wise. Right? So it's kind of like that saying, mi casa su casa. What I got, you got, and what you got, we got. Right? We're going to share our victuals. We're going to share our wealth and prosperity. Right? It says, 24. Now, when Jonathan heard that Demetrius's princes were come to fight against him with a great host then afore, he removed from Jerusalem and met them in the land of Amathus. For he gave them no respite to enter in his own country or enter into his country. So while at the time you're still dealing with trying to form confederacies and things, the world don't stop. These guys are still putting things in motion. So as this letters is going back and forth and ambassadors is going down there, they forming alliances and they're trying to strategically send forces to a certain area to come and try to attack you or prevent you from going into other areas. So now Jonathan and the men got to switch gears and deal with this matter here. He's not calling on help from the Romans or the Lacedaemonians. He's going to go and deal with it on his own terms, right? Now, if they wanted to help, that was on them, but he's not going out and asking them for this help. So it says in verse 26, he sent spies also into their tents, who came again and told them that they were appointed to come upon them in the night season. Wherefore, so soon as the sun was down, Jonathan commanded his men to watch and to be in arms, that all that night long they might be ready to fight. Also, he sent forth sentinels round about the host. Right? I think it was a TV show called The Sentinel. Right. So now you got it's interesting how, you know, when you have forces go out, you have people who are a part of the main army, but then you have other people who help you, and you send them out to go get intel, right? To go find out, to see if they can find out what the enemy's movements is going to be, right? To go see if they can really get the upper hand and find, you know, the weak link or find out the strategy that they're about to do. And they was able to find out that, hey, they're about to try to attack y'all at this appointed time. So Jonathan said, all right, we're going to put people in strategic places and wait for them, and then go send these individuals out to now be in certain areas to go and defend and help the people, right? Let me go look this up to get the exact definition of the sentinel. Said like a watchman.
Somebody who keeps guard all night.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, watchman.
Right. So it says a soldier or guard whose job is to stand and keep watch. Right. So in here it's spelled with a C. When you go online and look it up, spelled with an S. Right. And we know sometimes in translation certain words and things change, just like you read with in the Gospels and you read in the Old Testament, like Elijah and Elias. Right. Names and words change, but here it says C, sentinel, and in the English, modern English, it'll say with an S, sentinels, right? All right. So now let's go back. So now he has people on guard and watch, waiting for them to strike and make their presence known at this time. Verse 38, 28. But when the adversaries heard that Jonathan and his men were ready for battle, they feared and trembled in their hearts, and they kindled fires in their camp. Albeit Jonathan and his company knew it not till the morning, for they saw the lights burning. Then Jonathan pursued after them, but overtook them not, for they were gone over the river Eleutherus, right? So they seen that these guys already knew that it was prepared and ready. So they said, man, we probably we're not going to be able to take and overcome the battle. So we're going to flee, we're going to retreat. But we're not going to just retreat and let them know that. We're going to act as if we still in the camp. Right? So we're going to light torches and light lanterns and things as if we're still encamped here. And by the time they come, we're going to be far gone. And that's what happened. Right? When Jonathan and them came into the camp and seeing was trying to fight, they was already gone across this river and now had avoided a conflict. Right? It says in verse 31, it says, Wherefore Jonathan turned to the Arabians, who were called the Zabedians, and smote them and took their spoils. Right. So here the Arabians, who when you read, go to the history, would be the people that we know to be Ishmael. Right. Now, we don't read here in the history or give the account specifically at why at this time Jonathan turned immediately to go and smite them. There would have to have been already conflict to now cause this, attack on the Arabians to happen, because we, like I said before, we just would not do anything out of turn, right? There would have to have been some type of cause or catalyst for this to now happen with the Arabians or the Ishmaelites, known as the Zabidians. So they smote them and took their spoils. Verse 33. I'm sorry, verse 32. And removing thence, he came to Damascus, and so passed through all the country. Simon also went forth and passed through the country unto Ascalon, and the whole there adjoining, from whence he turned aside into Joppa and won it. For he had heard that they would deliver the whole unto them that took Demetrius' part. Wherefore he set a garrison there to keep it. Right. So now they're trying to take strategic areas, right, and put a garrison or a fort there to protect it. Right. So now you strategically overcome certain areas, and you put soldiers there, you put armament there, so that if someone comes back, you are now fortified and protected, and they can't take that again to now get leverage to now come and fight against other people or even yourselves. So it says here in verse 35, after this, came Jonathan home again, and calling the elders of the people together, he consulted with them about building strongholds in Judea and making the walls of Jerusalem higher, and raising a great mount between the tower and the city, for to separate it from the city, that so it might be alone, that men might neither sell nor buy in it. Right. So he went back home, gathered the elders, council together to figure out how can we better defend Jerusalem. Right? Let's build up and fortify the walls and the cities, and let's make it so that we can make it separate from the other people, where there be no buying and selling. You can't have other people coming in there, right? To now either come and get the upper hand and sneak people in and do certain treacherous things. Let's make it separate and become a holy people. We just alone, and not have any other influences. We're going to start by building up armaments and batterings and things like that, so that we can protect ourselves from the enemy.
Syria, what they know as Syria, in Egypt, and then you have Jerusalem right in the middle, right? As the Greek Hellenization is spreading, the goal was to switch Jerusalem into a Greek city state. So that's where we come in and start fighting, so that we can overcome, the culture. So this was what the fight is really was about. So we try to preserve our God-given right to serve the Most High and to live in peace, the way the Most High created us. But then it's spreading. We had no choice but to fight, because we were gonna get converted.
Mm-hmm.
Most of our people actually died.
Right. Or would die.
Right.
Right. Will get murdered and massacred trying to keep those commandments.
Right.
Right. But yeah, there's like I said, within the politics, there's a lot of strategy. There's a lot goes on. The same thing that happens today. A lot of the information is not always conveyed to the people about how countries move and how they operate. Everything is usually done covertly, right? That's why you have uh, national security, right? Where they're going to, on the behalf of the nation, they're going to try to secure it. But sometimes certain things have to be kept secret. Certain presidents and certain constituents will let you know that they can't disclose everything of what they're doing, right? To defend the nation, you have to go and do certain things. And it may cause where some people are going to have to die or be used as casualties, right? Sometimes you have to make those decisions for good or bad reasons, in order to defend the people. We're going to see that coming up.
At least in America, they have that monument in the language where the CIA is.
Mm-hmm.
You just kind of see those 5-pointed stars on the wall. They don't have like a name attached to them. It's like like a memorial. They go into detail about who these people are, what they died for. Just shows that they died to defend the country for some sort of covert whatever was going on.
Right. All right, so let's go back. Let's read. We're at verse 37. It says, upon this, they came together to build the city, for as much as part of the wall toward the brook on the east side was fallen down. They repaired that which was called Capanatha. Simon also set up Adada in Cephala and made it strong with gates and bars. Now Tryphon went above to get the kingdom of Asia and to kill Antiochus the king, and he might set the crown upon his own head. Right. So again, now here's another guy that's trying to rise up to take the throne. Right. We're over here making alliances with Rome, and they have their own structure. Right. We didn't know too much yet what we was getting or we were going to get involved with them, but the appearance was that it was going to be better than the Greeks. So now you've had Antiochus, the king, his son Jupiter, well, Antiochus Epiphanes, Antiochus Jupiter. Then you had all these other minions. Then you had Demetrius, right? Demetrius now usurped authority over the realm. And now here comes Tryphon. He's another one that's now going to try to take the next step and be the next king. So this is where Jonathan now is about to have his encounters with this man wanting to take the crown. So again, it says in 39, now Tryphon went about to get the kingdom of Asia and to kill Antiochus the king, that he might set the crown upon his own head. Howbeit, he was afraid that Jonathan would not suffer him, and that he would fight against him. Wherefore, he sought a way how to take Jonathan, that he might kill him. So he removed and came to Bethsan. So in his quest to become king, he thought about it and says, what things I need to do over here to become on the throne? I think this guy, Jonathan, and these Jews is going to try to prevent me. So I got to figure out a way to move him out of the way so I can get an easy access to the throne, right? So he's now about to become strategic in how he's going to allow Jonathan to get his guards down to take him. Verse 41. Then Jonathan went out to meet him with 40,000 men chosen for the battle and came to Bethsan. Now when Tryphon saw that Jonathan came with so great a force, he durst not stretch his hand against him, but received him honorably and commended him unto all his friends and gave him gifts and commanded his men of war to be as obedient unto him as to himself. Right? So when you read the story, it's just not just so plain black and white, because you're reading how Jonathan came with 40,000 men ready for war. And then you read it's like Jonathan is now seen by Tryphon. He's like, oh man, God, all right, let's stop. All right, we're good. We're not going to fight. And then all of a sudden, right in the midst of the battle, they just become cool. No, right? There's different things that lead up to it. When you read the ending of the chapter, the writer of the scriptures tells you that pretty much this is kind of like an abridged version to give you the sense. There's a lot that's going down in this whole escapade that we read with the Greeks and the Romans and the Jews and so on and so on. Can't put all of it in there. So we get in the abridged version. So we always have to keep that in mind as we're reading certain things, that it may not happen within a minute or an hour. Certain things take time, and then it gets to a certain point. So this here, when we read verse 42, it says, well, now when Tryphon saw that Jonathan came with so great a force, he durst not stretch forth his hand against him. So he said, listen, we're not going to go and fight. Let's stop, and we're going to go send ambassadors and go say, look, we not want to do this. The man with the rope riding on a horse with the white flag, the peace, or what have you, that we want to have a sit down and we're going to talk. This is now what's about to transpire. Verse 43 again. But received him honorably and commended him unto all his friends and gave him gifts and commended his men of war to be as obedient unto him as to himself. Right? So now over time, right, they became cordial with one another. He presented him with certain gifts, right? The Bible tells you a gift destroys the heart. In Ecclesiastes, that this is what's going to happen with Jonathan, right? He's going to let his guard down, right? This man who was a Greek was looking to become king, and he's going to try to do it by any means necessary. right? You can't trust your enemy or put any notion out of his sight that he's going to always try to get the upper hand on you, especially when he's not one of your people. Your people will do you dirty, but the enemy, the other nations, especially Esau, will do it at all costs, right? We know that now because we have a better sense of the truth. We have a better understanding of him as a nation throughout history. Kind of, Jonathan probably wasn't that keen on what was going on, right?
That's one thing that the nations is good at. It's study other people, right? Study other generals, because their idea of man is the center of everything. So they make it their duty to study the next man, how to take a move. So that's how he was able to get Jonathan. So he was studying Jonathan from afar while he was a general, right? Under the solution. So since he wanted power now, he identified all of the wrong people that he had to overcome. Then he find out Jonathan was one that he had to overcome. So he stayed.
Exactly. When you look at like sports, like if you want to be a top boxer, right, you gotta analyze your opponents. You gotta check out, weaknesses and strengths, right? You may not want to go fight him right now, right? You may say, you know what, I gotta probably go this. I gotta get this guy first, get some experiences, watch him and trajectory, and then later on come and take this guy, then go for the juggernaut and get to the top because now I've seen him go through his things and I've observed his weaknesses and his strengths. And maybe this is now the time that I'm going to get up. So even in war, politics, what have you, even just understanding man in regular today's times, we deal with the psychology of trying to understand, right, and how they operate and how they move. So here it will be the same thing where he figured out that with strength, man, these guys, I seen what these guys did. I know that their God is rolling with them at times. I seen how Jews roll and all of them, the Assyrians, I seen how they roll. So now we have verse 44. And unto Jonathan also he said, why hast thou put all this people to so great trouble, seeing there is no war betwixt us? Therefore send them now home again and choose a few men to wait on thee, and come thou with me to Ptolemais, for I will give it thee, and the rest of the strongholds and forces, and all that have any charge. As for me, I will return and depart. For this is the cause of my coming. Right? Why you troubling yourself with all these men? Like we about to fight. I ain't got no beef with y'all. I'm trying to go do this over here. Man, chill out. Send the rest of these guys home. I know you need a little bit of people. Keep some here, but hey, everything cool. Actually, I came to give you some of these strongholds. That's the reason why I'm here, right? I ain't here for trouble. I'm just here to present you a gift, give you land, and I'm going to go back home, right? Psalms 55 and 21. Psalms 55 and 21. Actually, let me start at 20. So Psalms 55 and 20, it says, he hath put forth his hands against such as be at peace with him. He hath broken his covenant, right? We know the he here, when you look at it, speaks about the wicked one, but the wicked one is Esau, right? Wicked one is going into that spirit primarily, which is Esau. So these characteristics that you read about here is predominantly found with them as a nation. I read it again. He put forth his hands against such as be at peace with him, right? We've seen this during the time when they celebrate Thanksgiving, and as well as a whole lot of other covenants and agreements that they made that in the end, they break them, right? They disassemble from them. And they have broken his covenant. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords, right? So with words, man, you can charm, the best of them. But all the while, he had a sword or a gun behind his back, waiting to get you at your weakness, or when your guard is down, and take you out. And that's what usually happens. We know this now through the Spirit, through the Scriptures, that these proverbs, had we had dissected them and digested them a little bit more, some of these events that we read probably wouldn't happen. But now we know better, right? So we know not to trust them, to be always on point, always on guard. I don't care how good, that's how sometimes people get caught up. It's like, nah, they're not that bad. They, they show they did this. They might show you a little kindness and do a little thing over here with the same intention. Get you to get your guard down, right? To get you to get the focus off of them and then get it on something else. And all of a sudden, boom, it hit you with the whammy, and you don't know where it came from. Right now, we out there marching, complaining, and no justice in this. Right? We had to, think smarter, be wiser now in these days.
Right. It's like us, the children of Israel. Our main focus is the Most High. Right? Our focus is the Most High. We put our attention in how we can do the Most High commandments. But with the nations, their focus is not the Most High. Their focus is men.
Right.
So they gotta steady men. But us sometimes we say, man, you know what? Let me rely on someone. With them, they make sure that they steady men. Make sure that they don't fall in that man that they got.
Right.
So that's why sometimes we get complacent. We gotta be more careful about how we deal with these people.
Right. I mean, we have rules on how we engage them.
Right.
Right. I mean, we are given license to defend ourselves, but we have rules on how boundaries on what we're supposed to do in the law. And the Most High set those bounds. So even when it comes to like land, the Lord said that's their inheritance. You can't go take that. I'm giving that land to them. You can't go take that. Whereas the other nations, they don't have this mindset or these rules. So they just say everything is for the taking. Whereas we know that everything is not for the taking until Yahweh comes. Right? When Yahweh comes, then he's gonna put certain men in certain areas and say, listen, that's their land, but you are the overseer. That's their land, you the overseer, right? Keep everybody on point, keep everybody on guard for doing any kind of treachery. But they don't have those same principles, morals. We do. We have to now fight within those confinements that the Most High has given us. And that makes it now harder for us because everybody else ain't playing with the same rules. Right? They could do what they want to do. We can't.
Parables in Christ, parable of the sword and the city, so we can level the playing field rather quickly. Because we get that pushback a lot of times. They can't. People will say, "Oh, who do you think you are? You don't know me. You don't know my story." It's like, no, I don't. I do know temptation. Let's go down. Let's go into it. And does anything I'm bringing out ring a bell? Because we'll find out real quick. Like it tells us 1 Corinthians 10:13, there's no temptation that's taken you to it's common to man. The other verses like James 4 talk about why have wars and fightings among you, right? It's not because of your lust. So it's like scripture narrows it down motivation behind anybody of our people or the other nations, right? We figured out rather quickly just by going through a few questions and seeing the response. So people can have that whole I'm new, I'm different. You're different, all unique, but we're all tempted the same. Let me just read this real quick for Psalm 55. This is I think Yahweh talked about one of his favorites. This is Ecclesiasticus 12, verse 10 and 11. Ecclesiasticus chapter 12, verse 10, where it reads, "Ever trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness." Verse 11, "Though they humble themselves and go crouching, yet take good heed and beware of them. Thou shalt be unto them as if thou hast wiped a looking, and thou shalt know that his rest hath not been altogether wiped away."
Right. Actually, you could read all the way down to the end in that chapter because it goes into the different wisdom pertaining to how you deal with your adversary, your enemy, what he's capable of if he gets the opportunity. So, yeah, that's a beautiful precept to go with it. All right, so yeah, just in case somebody said that they wasn't hearing too clearly from the warnings, remember the comments. Let's see, yeah.
Ecclesiasticus chapter 12 and verse 10.
No, I'm using this one.
Right there.
Yeah, this one here.
Oh, you are using it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, I'm just checking right now. Yep,
The school laptop.
it's low.
She's pretty good.
Okay.
Those kind of issues.
All right, so let's go back. So we at First Maccabees chapter 12, and we at verse 45. It's a lot. 46. It says, so Jonathan, believing him, did as he bade him and sent away his host, who went into the land of Judea, and with himself he retained but 3,000 men, of whom he had sent 2,000 into Galilee, and 1,000 went with him. Now, as soon as Jonathan entered into Ptolemaeus, they of Ptolemaeus shut the gates and took him, and all them that came with him they slew with the sword. Right. So again, like we just read, you know, words are smooth as butter, but war was in his heart. As soon as they got them into the gates of Ptolemaeus, they shut them, closed them in, and trapped them. Right. So now they're in different areas, and the men pounced and seized on them, and they slew the men that came with Jonathan. It says, verse 49, then sent Tryphon and host of footmen and horsemen into Galilee and into the great plain to destroy all Jonathan's company. But when they knew that Jonathan and they that were with him were taken and slain, they encouraged one another and went close together and prepared to fight. Right. So now, once Jonathan's men were slain, Tryphon said, those who was now sent away into Galilee, we're going to go get them too. So now when they went out to go and get them, they turned to realize that Jonathan and them was now taking advantage. They got trapped and some killed. He said, you know what? We're going to die here today. So they all banded together into one and stood to defend themselves. So now that's the situation that's going on. It says here in verse 51, they therefore that followed upon them, perceiving that they were ready to fight for their lives, turned back again. Whereupon they all came into the land of Judea peaceably, and there they bewailed Jonathan and them that were with him, and they were so afraid. Wherefore all Israel made great lamentation. Then all the heathen that were round about them sought to destroy them, but said they have no captain, nor any to help them. Now therefore let us make war upon them and take away their memorial from among men. Right. So once these men said that they was going to fight, they said, you know what? This ain't even worth it, man. Why are we going to lose our lives? They're already going to flee. We already got Jonathan accomplished our mission. Let's leave them be. So they left and went back to Jerusalem, gave them a report of what happened, and they bewailed Jonathan and the men that were slain. Now, at the same time this is going on, rumors spread, right? Word travels fast that Tryphon on the come up has now just taken Jonathan and slain some of the men that was with him. Now it says all the heathen that was round about, these other nations, thought for opportunity to now come and take Israel captives and kill some of us, right? Remember, it's not easy being the chosen of the Most High. These nations know the claim that we hold. They realize that the Most High is our defender. And if we show any weakness where the Lord is not defending us, they're going to try to come and take advantage of us. So when we was reading about what the Arabians were doing, we always had opposition. We always had these forces that come in to try to take advantage of us, whether it's to slay us, whether it's to take our intellectual property, whether it's to do anything in our neighborhoods. This is what they do, right? This is what's been going on even today. You go outside in your neighborhoods, they're always there coming to take advantage of you, right? Kill you slowly and softly in certain cases because they do it covertly. In other cases, is overt. Some people just can't hold back on their intentions and they'll just let it be known. So we see here, and this is why sometimes certain aspects of the history of the scriptures is removed when you look at today's Bibles, because this is history. This is letting you know what was going on during the times of the Greeks. So when you put two and two, one and one together, and it becomes two, and you realize that the people, the Jews, are so-called Negroes, so-called West Indians, so-called Puerto Ricans, Native American Indians. We see that these are those people, and then you start aligning the dots and like, yo, now I see why they went through what they went through and this and that, all because of this. And this goes back not just during the times of slavery, this goes back even further than that. This goes back even further than the Greeks, right? These other nations all had their hand, all played their part in our downfall. Now I understand. But when you remove history, when you remove the Apocrypha, you say the Old Testament doesn't matter, then you're just only reading aspects of the New Testament. You missing critical information to now complete the puzzle. This is why we have to read these precepts. This is why we have to go into the scriptures. We have to give this history so that people can understand clearly that this has been a historic thing, right? It's been for centuries going on in this fashion. Now we want to move on. 13th chapter, first verse.
They refer to as white, so-called white supremacy.
Mm-hmm.
That's why in 2 Maccabees chapter 2 and 14, even though we were at war, Judas made it his duty to make sure that we keep our records, keep our books, so that we keep, our history going, so that we know we have a reference of why, we were doing what we were doing.
Right, and that's why certain nations make concerted efforts to destroy our records, destroy the Bibles, right, or to change the understanding in the scriptures. I was reading, watching a documentary that was talking about how they made slave Bibles. They changed the Bibles and made slave Bibles, right? Just like how you have the New King James Version Bible and all these other abridged versions, right? To change the wording so that now when we read it, we don't get the same understanding. It's calculated, right? They understand what they want to do. They want to keep us away from these records in history so that we don't rise up and wake up like it tells you in Revelations, the 11th chapter, right? That we don't stand on our feet. They want us to be, like the valley of dry bones. They just want us to be like beasts at the corners, like you read in Isaiah.
And the main problem the nation have with us is the fact that we don't want to comply. Because as they took over the region, you have the other nation with their gods. They comply with the Greeks, with the Greeks' way, and then they converted from what they were worshiping, and they start worshiping their gods now. But with us, we have a God that they can't figure it out. That's not like their God, but they can see it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like they have a problem with us not complying with their doctrine and following their gods.
Good.
So, a verse, so 53. Deuteronomy 32 and 26.
Deuteronomy 32:26.
So with 13, with 12 and 53. Deuteronomy 32 and 26. I said, I would scatter them in the corners. I would make their remembrance of men to cease from among men.
You can also link Psalms 83 and 2 to 4. Right, Psalms chapter 83, 2 to 4 was also verse 53, because the heathen now are coming together also to destroy us, right? Psalms 83 and 2, write that down. Psalms 83 and 2, it says, "For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, Come and let us cut them off from being a nation. The name of Israel may be no more in remembrance." right? And you read on down, it talks about them forming a confederacy and the nations that have come together. Even though they fight amongst each other, they still have formed an alliance collectively to come against us as a people, right? Seems strange, but that's what happened. Kind of band together, even though you're enemies of another, against one targeted foe. So that was Psalm chapter 83, verses 2 to 4, and Deuteronomy 32, 26. So now we have first Maccabees chapter 13 and verse 1. It says, now when Simon heard that Tryphon had gathered together a great host to invade the land of Judea and to destroy it, he saw that the people was in great trembling and fear. He went up to Jerusalem and gathered the people together and gave them exhortation, saying, ye yourselves know what great things I and my brethren and my father's house have done for the laws and for the sanctuary. The battles also and troubles which we have seen, by reason whereof all my brethren are slain for Israel's sake, and I am left alone. Right? So now Jonathan, who's been taken, and probably the most, they probably thinking he's already dead. So now they don't have a captain. Jonathan had already taken that position. Now what we're going to do, right? They've killed some of our best men, including our captain. So now, with all the wars around us and the heathen coming at us again, Israel is now in solemn spirits. We don't know what we're going to do. So another one of Mattathias' sons, Simon, who was a brother to Jonathan and Judas, is now saying it's my time to come up and exhort the people, get their spirits and their minds right, and I'm going to have to take the position of captain of the host. So this is what he's doing, right? He said, I am alone, I'm just like them. It says in verse 5, now therefore be it far from me that I should spare my own life in any time of trouble, for I am no better than my brethren, right? So they have laid the path. They have laid down a good legacy for me. Be it far from me that I don't follow tradition, that I go try to save myself and not go try to put my life on the line for the nation. I think it tells you in St. John chapter 15. Say again? Yes, exactly. Done. St. John chapter 15 and verse 13. So St. John chapter 15 verse 13 says, greater love have no man than this, that a man laid down his life for his friends, right? That a man laid down his life. That's what Simon is saying. Be it far from me that I don't put my life on the line like my brother Jonathan did, like my brother Judas did, like my father Mattathias did, like the rest of the men that aligned themselves with us, right? So Christ even said that for a man to lay down his life, that means he has super love for his friends or for his nation, for his people. Christ did it. When you read it in the New Testament, he did it for people that was even enemies to him or viewed him as an enemy. Imagine that, right? It's hard for a man to lay down his life for his brethren that's cool with him. But imagine going to do it for someone that hates you and is trying to kill you. You still putting your life on the line for those individuals. That's what Yahushua did, right? So it's levels, as they say, it's levels to this, right? Some of us would say to Yahushua, Christ, increase my spirit. I don't know if I'm there yet, right? I still got to get to that level, but he was the only begotten. He was known to have that type of love for the whole nation, right? Not to say that Paul wouldn't jeopard himself to do that, or Moses didn't say the same things, but Yahushua was the one that was going to go through with that on the highest level.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about how in our dealings with each other, especially our people in the world, how it's easy for us to see them in a certain light and call them out their name. You know what I mean? Sometimes jokingly, but then some other times in a situation, it was sincere. Like, call me, and I'm on them or what have you, based on how they conduct themselves. And it's always just a good thing to be reminded of that you're under a curse. You know, the key is to warn your brother, etc. When opportunity presents itself, that they might repent from it. Even if they don't give them that warning.
Kabar.
Actually, Moses did lay down his life because when God wanted to destroy him and make Moses his own nation all over again, Moses told him, take me, don't destroy him.
Right. So Moses didn't lay down his life. He wanted to do it, but he didn't lay it down. Right. But he and Paul said the same thing, right? Which he to be a curse from Christ, right, for his people, right? So there's one thing, we see examples in the scriptures. Not to say that Moses wouldn't go to the depths, go to the length, but sometimes you see examples like Peter and what he said he would do, right? Oh, your house shot, and then all of a sudden, when a situation presents itself, spirit changed. But I'm not putting that on those two brothers. But we just know that Yahushua, with all that was going on, he did that. He laid down his life for the sins, and not even just those men that was present during his time, but for the nation as a whole, even for the past sins of those that came before him. So that now we, after, would have that grace to be able to learn in truth without having to suffer the punishment of the judgment. Right? He was the one that did that. But we see here Simon has that same type spirit that other righteous men had, right? His brothers before him, Moses, Paul, right? Now, again, it's a testimony and example that at one day, maybe one time, who knows, the Most High, Yahushua, may have it where we will be put in a position the same way where we have to consider and say, you know what? My job, my family, right now, it don't matter, right? If today's the day and I got to put myself on the forefront, so be it. Right? And this is what you learn from what we're reading, because these individuals did that, right? Can any one of us say at a certain time, today's the day, and be accepted of it, right? And be comfortable, courageous to go forward. Or you might try to be diplomatic and say, hold on, let me figure something out. Maybe there's a better way, right? Not to say that that's wrong, but some people, certain spirits, as the Most High gives them, that inspiration, they may just say, you know what, here's what it is. This is a statement. This is a moment right now. Maybe it inspired a nation even more. Who's to say, right? So again, these things that we read, again, are testimonies in time and space to have us consider if we were ever to be put in there. And like the scriptures say, spirit of the prophets, subject to the prophets. Who knows Simon and Judas and these other men, these righteous men are here present today and would also lay down their lives again for the nation. So now reading on, verse 6. Doubtless I will avenge my nation and the sanctuary and our wives and our children, for all the heathen are gathered to destroy us of very malice. Now, soon it says they are to destroy us of very. There's no cause, right? There's no real thing that we did against them that they have hatred. Sometimes we try to find a reason, like, well, why they hate us like that? What did we do? Right? It could either be non-conform or it's just the spirit. Remember, the Most High created the spirit in them like that, right? The Most High is the one that controls man. So while we're looking at the point of reason, these are nations that's not like us. They can see sometimes envy and all that play a part. Imagine you are the chosen people walking through the nation and you got that spirit, that salt. The salt is the water, the statutes command. That's wrong. But all those are like supplementary, complementary things of being the best singers and the best artists and the best scientists. And like we take that mantle. So sometimes they may become envious. Why these guys? And hatred just comes in.
He hates the fact that this guy don't know about it.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, these people, they have laws that are different from our laws. And if we keep continuing, people will listen to them. We cannot have this in our community. We gotta do the same thing. They want to be different.
Yep. Verse 7, it says, now as soon as the people heard these words, their spirit revived. And they answered with a loud voice, saying, thou shalt be our leader instead of Judas and Jonathan thy brother. fight thou our battles, and whatsoever thou commandest us, that we will do. So the same thing happened after Moses died, right? Joshua took over as captain of the host, and gave him that confidence and that support. When you read Joshua chapter 1, verse 16, right? Joshua chapter 1, verse 16 said the same thing. You about to read it? Okay.
Joshua chapter 1, verse 16, and they answered Joshua, saying, all that thou commandest us, we will do, and whithersoever thou sendest us, we will go. According as we hearken unto Moses in all things, so will we hearken unto thee. Only the Lord thy God be with thee, as he was with Moses. 18. Whosoever it be that doeth rebel against thy commandment, and will not hearken unto thy words, and all that thou commandest him, he shall be put to death. Only be strong and of a good courage.
Right. So all Israel always rallied behind the new captain, especially when it was seen that that individual walked with the spirit of the Most High. Right? It could be anybody that would rally behind. It has to be an individual that has good report, blameless, and walk with the spirit of the Lord. Go and support. It says in verse 10, so then he gathered together all the men of war and made haste to finish the walls of Jerusalem. And he fortified it round about. And he sent Jonathan the son of Absalom, and with him a great power to Joppa, and casting out them that were therein remained. So let me read that again. Who casting out them that were therein remained there in it. Right. So again, as he's fortifying the walls of the city, he's strategically going to certain areas and removing those people that was in there, and then leaving people there as like a fort or a garrison. It says verse 12. So Tryphon removed from Ptolemais with a great power to invade the land of Judea, and Jonathan was with them in war. Jonathan is still alive, held prisoner, held captive, while the rest of his men were slain. It says, verse 13, but Simon pitched his tent in Adada over against the plain. Now, when Tryphon knew that Simon was risen up instead of his brother Jonathan and meant to join battle with him, he sent messages unto him, saying, whereas we have Jonathan thy brother in hold is for money that he is owing unto the king's treasure, concerning the business that was committed unto him. Right? So now he's saying that Simon is the next in line. He himself don't want to just enter into the battle. He's trying to also trying to get him to play his card, see what type of spirit he ruling with. So he's like, the reason why I got your brother, pretty much, he didn't pay his tax, right? He owed money for the business that he was supposed to be doing, and he never provided it. So this is now how we're going to resolve the issue, right? It says in verse 16, wherefore now send 100 talents of silver and 2 of his sons for hostages, that when he is set at liberty, he may not revolt from us, and we will let him go. Right? So the money that he was owed was 100 talents of silver. Send that, right? And everything be good. And just to make sure everything work itself out, send 2 of his sons, so that when the money is sent and we let him go, we don't turn and switch and then try to come back and fight us. We want to have his sons as hostages until he leave and go away. After that, we can give him the sons, right? This is what the words is, right? Now they're not trusting each other. At one point, he was all buddy. Now he's like, I don't trust your brother Jonathan. Make sure his sons come just in case he try to revolt and do some treachery. We didn't get there yet, right? However, the next verse says in verse 17, hereupon Simon, albeit he perceived that they spake deceitfully unto him, yet sent he the money and the children, lest peradventure he should procure to himself great hatred of the people, who might have said, because I sent him not the money and the children, therefore is Jonathan dead. Right? So as Tryphon is playing this out, Simon already picked the game. Right? He understands how this works. Right? It's like sometimes you're watching a show or movie over and over and over, and they send in the ransom money, and people are like, yo, Come on. You know, once you get that money, you're going to kill them anyway. But you got to send the ransom money, because if you don't send the ransom money, people are going to think that you the cause of him being killed because you didn't send the ransom money. So you in between two straits. Now, what makes it even more harsh is because these are his nephews, right? Not to say that it wouldn't be that bad if it was anybody, but these are his nephews. These are Jonathan's sons that he has to go and send to this man, right? He knows these kids, right? Been around them, hung out, played with them and so forth and so on. That's what you do with your nephews. Slapping around, fight, all this other stuff. But now he knows he's sending them to his death, or sending them to their death, because this guy's he's not being upfront, he's lying. But I gotta do it because I'm trying to procure the nation. If I don't do it, all the people who now just rally behind me is going to separate themselves from me, because they're going to say I wanted position. That's why I didn't send him, because I wanted my brother to die so I could take it from him. That's right. He knew how words start spreading, how people start talking, so he had to do it.
He's a strategist, right? He's a strategist, because what he's using right now is strategy of war. So if you send me 2 sons, and I see the family is already a problem, I'm gonna stop it from his track. Because if I get those 2 sons, they won't be able to rise up against me anymore. I see the families, they get 2 of them sons that could be potential general. Let me take them out.
Right. Try to cut off their posterity.
Right. So that's pretty much what he did right there. So he studied this whole thing, that's strategy.
So this is another one of those, situations where you have to be a big, great decision maker, good thinker. Consider all of these things. Even me putting myself in a position where you gotta go out there and sacrifice your nephews for the betterment of the nation, right? This is the decision that he did. Now he could have said, "Nah, right? I ain't sending my nation," and gave them the reason why, but he probably wouldn't. Thought that they probably wouldn't believe it. Right? Just to mention what Pakra mentioned, he was saying that Tryphon himself, based on what he did, was a strategist. Studied people, and was in his mind wise to say, I'm going to get 2 of his sons, so that even if he loses and we kill him, no one else rises up later on to get revenge or to be avenged of the murder of their father. So if I get them, I can take them out, right? Now, how did he even know he had sons? Again, this goes into, getting intel and information about a person, studying them. And that's what he did. So he now has these 2 sons and this money, and it's also showing the cards of Simon to see how much he's willing to go. Right? You can study a person just by the decision making. If he didn't do it, you say, okay, this is how he actually moves. If he did it, I see, oh, he's a thinker. I understand. So sometimes you got to look at Esau, and you got to give them credit on some of the things that they did, even though they're wicked as hell. You're like, you know what? I see what he did there. Albeit he's going to go down, I see what he did. He just delayed the end. But that was an interesting move that he did. It's like chess, right? We know that we're going to take the king at the end, but some moves with pawns and things kind of like, all right, that was slick. That was slick. This was treacherous. They said they speak up because they said they can't hear you on the mic.
It's like also sometimes when you're a leader, it's like you can't fear the people, because that's why you're there in the first place. Right. Sometimes you gotta do stuff that's gonna upset the people. Kind of like when Moses went on the mount, and then what was the piece? Aaron went, and he let the people convince him, right, to build the calf. Right. Says because you fear the people. Sometimes when you put in position, people are gonna get upset, but at least you make the right decision. They gonna see it. They may not see it.
Okay. Yep. That's So I said, when you put in that position, you got to consider everything, man. Got a minute of the end. So now reading on, we're at verse 19. So he sent them the children and the 100 talents. Howbeit Tryphon dissembled, meaning broke the agreement, neither would he let Jonathan go. And after this came Tryphon to invade the land and to destroy it, going round about by the way that leadeth into Adorah. But Simon and his host marched against him in every place wheresoever he went. So he didn't fulfill his word, right? He's supposed to let Jonathan go. Now he got the money, Jonathan and his sons, and now they're still looking to go and fight, right? It says in verse 21, now they that were in the tower sent messengers unto Tryphon to the end that he should hasten his coming unto them by the wilderness and send them victuals. Wherefore Tryphon made ready all his horsemen to come that night, but there fell a very great snow, by reason whereof he came not. So he departed and came into the country of Gilead or Gilead, right? So there were still people that was now needing help from Tryphon that heard that he was on his way, was coming to go fight. He was like, listen, go send somebody to let them know we're running out of victuals, we're running out of food, we need help today, right? And he was ready to come, but it so happened that it snowed. So now lets you know that this is in the winter time, right? This is in the winter season, because a great snow came and prevented him from now coming, and he went into another area. Then it says, and when he came near to Beth-Kamah, he slew Jonathan, who was buried there. Afterward, Tryphon returned and went into his own land. So now after a while, he realized this guy is no good to me, and slew him there when he was when he came to Gilead or Beth-Kamah, right? So all this time he had him, and then he killed him. Now we don't read if he killed the sons as well, if he still kept them hostage and something else happened later on, they retrieved, but we know that Jonathan was now murdered there at that present time, and then he left to go back to his own realm, right? Then it says, then sent Simon and took the bones of Jonathan his brother and buried them in Moden, the city of his fathers. And all Israel made great lamentation for him and bewailed him many days. Simon also built a monument upon the sepulchre of his father and his brethren, and raised it aloft to the site with hewn stones behind and before. So now Mattathias and Judas and them had already deceased. So now when Jonathan is murdered by Tryphon, he went and took his body and brought it back to the city of Moden to go bury it with his family. But now he made it a big thing, made a monument, so that now all people could see this monument that was now the sepulchre of his family, right? It said, verse 28, moreover, he set up 7 pyramids, one against another, for his father and his mother and his 4 brethren. And in these he made cunning devices, about the which he set great pillars, and upon the pillars he made all their armor for a perpetual memory. And by the armor ships carved, that they might be seen of all that sail on the sea. So this is not a small thing. This had to be a big monumental thing that even as the ships is passing by on the sea, they're seeing this thing along the seashore. They're seeing these things, and there's ships carved along them. So now when you are an archaeologist and you now stumble upon this, you can align this to scripture, because it was supposed to be left as a perpetual monument, something that would stand the test of time. Now, some of our relics such as these are found, but they don't always disclose them to the public. Some things they disclose if it doesn't call the third that's going to open up people's minds and things, and others they just keep hidden, right? So some you'll see in the museums here and there, others they're just going to be kept. Like you go to a place like the Vatican and other places, they have the real relics hidden down in basements and tombs and other areas or in chambers where most people are not allowed access to. They'll show you all that other Renaissance stuff, but not the real deal. But this was something that was going to be available to anybody to see. So now one would wonder, if it's already found, if it's hidden, if it got destroyed through something, right? Who knows? Now, if you're a researcher, somebody may be able to go out and go research and check out and see where Modin is geographically, get the Bible Atlas, find out the land, and then go and see if in this region, whatever the modern day name is, if they have certain relics or certain things that they now have excavated and found and put on for folks to see. Most likely not, right? But someone who's inspired can go and check it out. So now reading on verse 30. This is the sepulchre which he made at Modin, and it standeth yet until this day. So the spirit has it where it's still around somewhere, right? Still around, whether it's found and they hiding it or it's still not disclosed, right? Still hasn't surfaced. But it says still supposed to be. Unto the writings of this author, it was still there, but might be still here in 2023. Reading on verse 32. And he reigned in his stead and crowned himself king of Asia and brought a great calamity upon the land. So now Tryphon took the kingdom, right? Took the realm, became king of Asia and brought great calamity upon the land. We read from First Maccabees, the first chapter, about all the calamities and the treachery and all the wickedness and abominations that they brought in. It didn't stop. Tryphon is now another one that's going to come and do the same thing, probably even worse than what we was dealing with before. It says in verse 30, the water. Not 30. Verse 33. It says, then Simon built up the strongholds in Judea and fenced them about with high towers and great walls and gates and bars and laid up victuals therein. Moreover, Simon chose men and sent to King Demetrius to the end that he should give the land an immunity, because all that Tryphon did was to spoil. Now, what's interesting about this is because Demetrius was already an enemy to us, right? We had already had conflict and wars with Demetrius, but now we got another guy. And this guy is an enemy now, or an adversary to Demetrius. So again, like we said, the enemy of my enemy can become my friend. So now while Tryphon is on the onslaught, maybe we can go and make a confederacy and alignment with Demetrius. And because of this, he may perceive that we both can now go and fight up against Tryphon. So this is why now Simon is now going and being a politician and going and trying to make an alignment with Demetrius.
Geopolitical issues. You hear the analysts on these news shows, they'll say, alternative media, they'll say, not so much about sides, more so about interests.
Mm-hmm.
So you might look back and say, well, the United States and Russia were cool in this conflict, and now we got a problem with them with Trump and everything. I thought we were peace with them. It's like, it has to do with interest in any given time. Right? Russia and the United States might have been allies given another threat or another situation. So it's like, you think about it from that perspective, you do your research, you can kind of see what's going on and you predict behavior.
All right. So now we have verse 35. It says, unto whom King Demetrius answered and wrote after this manner. King Demetrius unto Simon the high priest and the friend of kings, as also unto the elders and nation of the Jews, sendeth greeting. The golden crown and the scarlet robe which he sent unto us, we have received, and we are ready to make a steadfast peace with you, yea, and to write unto our officers to confirm the immunities which we have granted. Right? So it wasn't that they just sent letters; they sent gifts. They made a golden crown and a scarlet robe, to show that, listen, we acknowledge you as being king right now, and we're looking to align ourselves with you. Right? So it says, and whatsoever covenants we have made with you shall stand, and the strongholds which ye have builded shall be your own. As for any other oversight or fault committed unto this day, we forgive it. And the crown tax also, which ye owe us. And if there were any other tribute paid in Jerusalem, it shall no more be paid. Man, that's what everybody wants right now, right? Remove the tax, forgive the student loans, right? Get rid of the debt. That's what everybody wants. That's what he did for us right now. Whatever happened in the past, bygones be bygones. Whatever tax I was paying, it's forgiven, man. Y'all ain't got to pay that no more. Whatever y'all got, y'all keep it. Nobody's ever going to try to come and take that. You say to yourself, dang, yeah, we dancing in the streets when we hear something like this, right? It says, verse 40, and look who are meet among you to be in our court. Let them be enrolled and let there be peace betwixt us. So it's like, look, choose out choice men, and they're going to come and be officers in our courts, right? That's what they did for us today, right? We got people that's at city halls and senators and judicial, at Congress and all these different places. So listen, we can all become integrated now, right? We're going to be one people, right? Well, again, never forget who your enemy is, right? This is a temporary thing at this time because we know, based on what we read in Psalms 55, their words are smoother than butter, right? At any time, that word is going to turn and change once they get the opportunity.
Even invited us into his winning. It's not even for our benefit. It's to keep his kingdom.
Right. It's for his benefit. Exactly. Right. So it's like one hand washing another. Both of us is looking to get opportunity. We looking to get some form of succor, right? And let these guys take each other out. Right? Let him listen. We not with him. I know we had beef in the past, but listen, man, this guy's bugging, man. Like he's doing all kind of things. We not with him. A word, y'all get some too. All right, cool. We cool, right? Don't worry, y'all ain't got nothing to worry about because maybe I might call upon them at some point in time. But yeah, we're gonna go fight. We don't have to worry about you. We only got him. We can just sit back and watch what's going on. That's what Esau did with us, right? They put us against each other, and they could sit back and watch us kill each other, right? That's what Simon was looking at. It says in verse 42, 41. Thus the yoke of the heathen was taken away from Israel in the 170th year, right? Meaning we didn't have to pay any taxations and worry about any of the heathen coming down on us under Demetrius' rule right here. Verse 42, then the people of Israel began to write in their instruments and contracts in the year of Simon the high priest, the governor and leader of the Jews. So now they kept record of what now happened or transpired when Simon was our captain or our host, called him the leader and the governor, right? Nice chief titles. Even Yahushua was called the governor, right? That he was the one that was now able to give us, some space where we didn't have to pay taxes anymore, right? We didn't have to worry about them coming in our lands anymore for a period of time. So it says in verse 43, in those days, Simon camped against Gaza and besieged it round about. He made also an engine of war, set it by the city, and battered a certain tower and took it. And they that were in the engine leaped into the city, whereupon there was a great uproar in the city. Keep in mind, this is the priest. He's a Levite, and he's the priest. But the priest is the general that's going out waging these wars. We don't see that in these other nations. Right? You don't see that in Esau's kingdom. You don't see that in Elam. You don't see a man of the quote-unquote cloth, right, going out there shedding blood. But because of the position that he's in, not that he would want to have to go out there and do it, but because of the position that he's in, he's defending our nation, right? As the priest, he's going out there and leading this campaign as those that were before him, Jonathan, Judas, and Mattathias.
He, when he was given instructions before he died, he thought about Simon. He was supposed to be the counselor.
Exactly.
Now you see that what he said.
Right, come to fruition. Right. So he's just highlighting back in I think it's First Maccabees, the 3rd chapter, when Mattathias was about to pass. He went and brought his sons together and spoke about great men and things from the past. And then he would set them in order as far as for allowing certain sons to take certain positions because of their skill set. And one of the things he highlighted was Simon because he was a good counselor. He's a good thinker, right? So Simon, was thinking well here at this time to now allow Israel to be able to survive and not have to worry about outside influences now always coming down on them. And Israel wrote that in the records.
Either when we did the first fruit did the Sabbath service on, or we did it for the Holy Day. You said like in modern terms, just like think of like Judas Maccabeus. If it was high school, he would be like the quarterback. And think of Simon, he's like the class president.
Yeah, come. So reading on verse 45, it says, insomuch as the people of the city sent their clothes and climbed upon the walls with their wives and children and cried with a loud voice, beseeching or begging Simon to grant them peace. So when they seen them come in and they jumped in the city, all hell broke loose. People running around, women climbing walls with their children, screaming and asking peace. Like, please stop, right? It says, verse 46, and they said, deal not with us according to our wickedness, but according to thy mercy. Check that out, right? Don't do to us what we did to you, right? Don't act, don't reap. We didn't reap what we sowed. Nah, we just looking for mercy, right? You people are people of morals and forgiveness, which we are. We're the most forgiving. I keep saying over and over, we're the most forgiving nation on the planet Earth. Continually get beat, continually get murdered, all kind of atrocities, and we still are giving the hand and still say, you know what, I forgive you. Right? And that's what they're doing here, right? They know, like the choir talking about, they probably check us out as a people, and they try to get over it, take our kindness for weakness, right? Don't deal with us the same way we dealt with you. Nah, I apologize. I don't know what we're about. Please forgive us. That's what they did right here. Read verse 46 again. And they said, deal not with us according to our wickedness, but according to thy mercy. So Simon was appeased toward them, fought no more against them, but put them out of the city and cleansed the houses wherein the idols were, and so entered into it with songs and thanksgiving. So Simon showed them mercy. He says, all right, get the hell out. Right? Get the hell out. Quick, right? Jetting up out of there. And then we went and cleansed the sanctuary, cleansed the different places that they now came into our areas and set up all these idols. Right? So we were still taking idols down and away, even during time of fight. Right? And then we entered into song and thanksgiving. We got taxes and other stuff. Now we got the upper hand. Right? Simon is doing a great job at this time that he's now taking command. Verse 48. Yeah, he put out all uncleanness out of it and placed such men there as would keep the law and made it stronger than it was before and built therein a dwelling place for himself, right? So he took everything that was wicked out of there, all the idols and all the heathens that was there, he got taken out, right? And then set up men of good rapport, well named, right? Someone who was going to be able to now take that office, that job, and then make sure that it would sustain itself, that we would worship the Lord in righteousness. No more sin and treachery would come in. And then he built a place for himself, right? Because now somewhere we have peace, right? We got a little bit of time where we don't have to worry about the heathen. Verse 49. They also of the tower in Jerusalem were kept so straight that they could neither come forth nor go out into the country, nor buy nor sell. So we read that in the previous chapter where they wanted to fortify the city where it would separate them from the other nations, right? We would now keep all of our victuals and stuff in-house. So when they needed to get it, they couldn't get it, right? So now they was like quarantined or sectioned off. Strategic. So it says here, I'm going to read it again. They also, the tower in Jerusalem, were kept so straight that they could neither come forth nor come into the country, nor buy nor sell. Wherefore they were in great distress for want of victual, and a great number of them perished through the famine, right? So now you might be able to read in some other history about some famine that happened, right, during the time of the Greeks. But it won't mention that it was around the times of the Maccabees, during the time of Simon. But it will be given from their perspective about a famine that happened in certain regions in Israel. And they'll put a spin as if they were the people. But we see here the records, right? That's why it's good for us to read this history and then start to align the dots with these lies that they'll say about the same time periods. That's why the years are there, right? That's why you have the years in the scriptures. So now you can even go into their years, align it with our years, and then make sense of what was actually going on, right? And point out the flaws. Reading on, it says in verse 50. Exactly, right? Man can't write this, man. Like when you start going back into certain periods in time, like when you look at slavery, right? People will understand that the 1611 version Bible was right around the time of slavery. but it was a translation from the Hebrew and the Greek. So the Bible, the records was before then. So now, how is it that it was already foretold that these said events, particularly the way they have happened from that point all the way up until now? How? Right? And it's so accurate, so detailed. And if man did write it, why couldn't do it? As much as man write in the earth, many books like Solomon talked about in Ecclesiastes 12th chapter, there is no end. They have not been able to now duplicate records such as this. Something's to tell you that it wasn't all inspired by man, it was of the Most High. So now, reading on in verse 50, then cried they to Simon, beseeching him to be at one with them, which thing he granted them. And when he had put them out of from thence, he cleansed the tower from the pollution. So here's another chance opportunity with Simon, through his mercy, let them go. Right? All right, y'all can get out of here. Most men probably would say, "They behinds, man. We should kill these men for all that they did to us. They defiled our sanctuary and our temple, murdered our women and our babies and everything else. Same thing y'all did to us, we're going to do it to y'all." You read Revelation 13, and hear what the Most High said. He said, kill with the sword must be killed with the sword. Right? But we didn't get that yet. Right? Yahushua didn't give that until the time of John the Revelator. This is before then, right? So now we understand what the judgment of the Lord is. Verse 51. It says, and entered into the 23rd day of the second month, which we're in right now, in the 101st year, with thanksgiving and branches of palm trees, and with harps and cymbals, and with viols and hymns and songs, because there was destroyed a great enemy out of Israel. Right? So just like during the time of Esther and during the time of Judas, like when we had these quote unquote small victories, because we know they were small because we went through them again and again and again. But big victory is going to come where we never have to worry about it. But when we got these small victories, we memorialize or gave honor to the men and women that did these things, whether it was Esther or Mordecai, right? Judas, right? We give these men honor of the things that they did to stand up and defend the nation. So during this time, there was a lot of singing, dancing, feasting, right? Thanking the Most High for raising up a man like Simon to be able to be our captain and to deliver us at this time. Verse 52, he ordained also that day should be kept every year with gladness. Moreover, the hill of the temple that was by the tower, he made stronger than it was. And there he dwelt himself with his company. So while we're having a good time, while we are praising the Most High in thanksgiving for giving us deliverance. That's what was synonymous with these thanksgivings. We were delivered from our enemy, or we conquered our enemy. Same way how Esau's mind is that he was giving or celebrating Thanksgiving for getting the land, for conquering his enemy, which will be Gad and Reuben, right? And some of us that was there as well. So this was our victory. And we acknowledge it by now keeping it every year on the second month and the 23rd day, right? Before the Most High. So this is this. But at the same time, while they're doing this, they still fortifying the city because you never know, right? You want to keep your guard down. It may come. So as we, having a good time, we're making our cities and our walls stronger and stronger. Verse 53. And when Simon saw that John, his son, was a valiant man, he made him captain of the host. And he dwelt in Azara, right? So Simon had a son, and there's a history, that you don't read exclusively in the books of the Maccabees, but during this time they'll say that Simon's son John, and they'll say John Arcanius, he was the one that was now set up to be captain of the host after his father Simon. Then he was also high priest, and then he would be one that would influence the heathen to keep some of our laws and our records, right? To now become proselytes and transition to keeping these laws so that it would make it easier for us to keep these. right? To not be separated so that they would not force their influences on us. So you'll read some histories about Simon's son. Oh, okay. Oh, it's right here. Oh, okay. You'll read about Simon's son being one of the influences to do this. And then when you get into the gospel and you read about Herod the Great, and you read about some of the other kings during the times of the apostles, why they were so studious about our culture. Why did they know so much about our culture? They'll say that it started with Simon's son, right? But again, you don't read too much of him specifically going through that in the Maccabees, but later on through history, they'll say that that's what his son did, right? But that's separate. Right now, the honor goes to Simon Thassi, right? Another one of the great men that came out of Levi, that came out of Mattathias' loins, that stood up to defend the nation, right? So we keep this day in honor of Simon, right? We reflect on it. We look at it for inspiration, as a testimony that, again, if we are in that position, man or woman, that we will rise up and do what was right and do what was, productive to protect our nation, the building of our nation. So the understanding that we read from this and other men should draw us closer and closer to the Most High. Now, we celebrate this day, and we'll see different times we mention this. This is not a Sabbath day, even though we're coming and honoring it. It's not like a Sabbath where you can't go out and buy and sell and do certain things, but this is a day of memorial for him, just like it was for Judas, to keep in solemnity when it's time to share. Time for quiet again. I'll let it be known what everyone couldn't hear what he said.
I just went into the scripture.
Isaiah 43,
right, in verse 7.
And verse 7.
As we keep in the day, you got to give all glory and honor to because regardless of whatever victory we have, it's the Most High showing His glory through His God, as He always promised. Right? It says, Isaiah 43 and 7. Even everyone that is called by my name, for I have created him for my glory. I have formed him, yea, I have made him. 8. Bring forth the blind people that have eyes, and the deaf that have ears. Let all the nations be gathered together, and let the people assemble. Let the nation be gathered together, and let the people be assembled. Who among them can declare this and show common things? Let them bring forth their witnesses, that they may be justified, and let them hear and say, it is true. In verse 10, yea, ye are my witnesses, saith the Lord, and my servant whom I have chosen, that they know and believe me, and understand that I am He. Before me there was no God formed, neither shall there be. Right? And it says in verse 11, to close it, it says, even I am the Lord, and besides me there is no Savior.
All things come from the Lord, right? The evil, the good, the blessing, the curse, all things come from the Lord. Kings of the other nations, how they rule, all of these things are set up by the Most High. We have our role to play, right, as the righteous, right, to go through certain calamities, and now we're coming to the end of our calamity, and the judgment of the nations is upon them. So even in the midst of that, we still rehearse the righteous acts, as it says in Judges 5 and 11, to draw us closer and closer to our right spirit that the Lord gave us before, right? That we are now in the times of the refreshing to get to that perfect spirit. All right. So again, Shalom, Shemaiwan, happy day, Simon Thassi. Enjoy the day. reflect on the history pertaining to his honor, why he did it, how he did it. Could you do it? All these things is, again, like it says in Isaiah 8:20, to the law and to the testimony. Not only should we speak according to the word, we should also act according to the word. And see if we can be inspired and exhort one another to do the same things. All right. So I know it's almost 11 o'clock. I say the water to those that logged on, that dialed in, to the Akim here. Peace and blessings. Lord's will, you enjoy the rest of the day. Besides, we'll also we'll hear each other or see during the Friday night class upcoming tomorrow night. All right, so we're gonna close out the class. Say shalom, akum wa akwa, brothers and sisters, and you have a meal doing in honor of the brother, and we'll stay in the spirit. All right, stay tuned for the closing prayers. Shalom. Barakati Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahawashai Afra Natalanawa Par Yahgabin Tuara Aman La Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahawashai Af Yasha'al. English translation. Blessed are Yahweh in the name of Yahawashai that gives to us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it. To Yahweh in the name of Yahawashai with Israel. I Madwa upon you, Jerusalem, stand and face Jerusalem. And the prayer. Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahawashi, Babakushai, Shemai, Lanawa, Aitha, Yem Yun, Aitha, Shalak, Maika Allah, Baha Allahayim, Tazadakim, La, Shemaiah, Barat, Rapah, Magun, Wahakaziyat, Banya, Yashala, Bashalat, Lanawa, Rabian, Kakama, Rabian, Rabian, Bayana, Rabian, Sabalanwa, Rabian, Amawan, Rabian, Aqua, Rabian, Ahabian, Rabian, Agana, Prokanaya, Wasalat, Ko, Katayanawa, Lahaakim, Waakwa, Wayashala, from Yad, Waiwalam, Wahasham, Yahawah, Tawada, Aman. English translation. Yahweh in the name of Yahawashi, please listen to us now, right now. Sent Michael and the righteous powers of angels to watch over, bless, heal, protect, and make strong the children of Israel. And send to us much wisdom, much knowledge, much understanding, much patience, much faith, much brotherhood, much love, much spiritual protection, and forgive all our sins for the brothers and sisters in Israel, always and forever. In the name of Yahawashi, thank you, so be it. I'm going to do the blessing of the food first. Yahweh, Gadawo, Ba'ashem, Adawanya, Yahawashi, Babakusha, Barak, Mako, Yanawa, Shataqwa, Yanawa, Yayon, Yanawa, Lakum, Yanawa, Shakarai, Yanawa, Zakar, Shah, Hayawam, Shemaiwan, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Tawada, Aman. All right, four points prayer. Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Barak Nawa, Wayasha'Allah, Wabathya Saparium, Shema Yashrei Yahweh Elohim Yahweh. Translation. Yahweh, the name of Yahweh Shai, bless us and Israel in the house of books or schools. And Deuteronomy 6 and 4, hear, O Israel, praise, honor, and glory to the Most High by Yahweh Shai. Again, we say, Shar, Shalom, Shemai, want a happy day of Simon. Shalom, Yashrallah. Peace and blessings.